Hey, I'm Matt Hudgins. He's Dave Mulvaney, and this is Profitability MD. Dave, how you doing today, buddy?
Matt, I'm doing great. How are you?
Life's pretty good. We got a rainy day here in Atlanta. What you got down there in Florida?
Well, it's sunny today, but there's a little spinner down off the coast of Puerto Rico.
Yeah, I saw that. It might hit you guys this weekend.
Yeah, it looks that
As
way.
a tropical storm or something. I don't know if it'd be a hurricane or anything like that.
Yeah, nothing like having a little tropical storm on Labor Day weekend. Nothing wrong with that.
Nothing wrong with that. It's like having sharks at the beach. Nothing wrong with that. Just,
Guess I won't be playing golf this weekend.
That's right. All right, so let's talk today. Delegating more can increase your earnings and possibly your quality of life,
Sure.
right?
Yeah.
And there's actually all kinds of research on this. I read an article earlier this week on Harvard Business Review. I think it was this week. It might have been last week. Harvard Business Review did a topic on that. But we talk about delegating all the time and how simplify to multiply. I've heard that before. Some of my other gurus, simplify to multiply, meaning, we got to get rid of the wasteful stuff, right? So let's talk a little about delegating to increase your earnings. Can increase your earnings.
Well, I would start with, the first question that I normally get is, well, how do I know what to delegate? And my response, which I'm sure I don't know would be exactly the same as yours, but I know it'd be similar because we do think a lot alike in this area. I'd be like, well, first delegate the stuff that you hate to do. Let's start there. And of course, that would require you to take an activity inventory.
There you go.
That you rate what you like to do and what you don't like to do. And then you're going to have to create some systems on those things that you don't like to do. And a system is just simply the way you do it now, record it on paper or record it on video or audio or whatever, but it's recorded so you can hand it to someone else and say, here, this is how I do it now.
You said about three things in there. Let's unpack what you said. We got to unpack that, right? So the first thing that we would both tell people to do is activity inventory, which is basically write down everything you do for a week. I actually say hour by hour, write down, I answered phone calls, emails, talked to clients, went on a call, did a prep book for a client meeting, did some follow-up, right? So you got to do activity inventory. That is number one. Do it for about a week is what we usually say, both of us. Number two would be now at the end of the week, you divide it up to, I just simplify it, A, B, C tasks, right? A tasks are really good tasks you enjoy, make you money, and C tasks are, they don't make you money, they're a pain in the butt, and, we could pay somebody to do that. I've also done it dollar amounts. Hey, C activities are $10, 20 activities. I could pay somebody $20 to read my email or $20 to set up my appointments or $20 to confirm my appointments, right?
Sure.
And the A activities, I call them your A plus activities. That's what I got to do because that's what really makes me money. That's meeting with clients or prospects or centers of influence or closing a deal, right? And the B stuff is in between there, right? So that was number two would be, hey, let's keep track of our activity. What are we spending our time on now? Then qualify it A, B, or C, or dollar amounts, $20, $100, $1,000, whatever numbers you want to use. And then what we'll find out is that number three is the 80-20 principle, right? Which is all of us are spending 80% of our time doing 20 stuff, if we're good, percent of our stuff on the A stuff, right?
So just because you broke up a little there, just say the 80-20 again, just for the recording.
Yeah. So for the 80-20, the third part, I'd say you're probably spending 80% of your time doing those C activities, those $10 activities, those $20 activities. We all are. So the first thing we have to do is that's what we delegate. So you were saying somebody will ask you, well, what do I delegate? How do I delegate? Well, first thing we got to do is find out what do we delegate. And we delegate the C activities, the $10, $20 activities. And we're probably spending 80% of our time on those activities. So by default, if I spend less time on the C activities, that gives me more time on the A activities, right? Just simple math. But what it really does is frees up your time to spend, if you were spending more time on your A plus activities, the stuff that really makes you money, by default, you increase your earnings. You make more money, right?
Correct. And I don't believe you can ever make, I say this cautiously, depending on what you do, but unless you're able to outsource or delegate. Outsource is a whatever. It's almost like a cuss word nowadays. When I say outsource, I don't necessarily mean hiring small children in a foreign country. What I mean by outsourcing is simply taking an activity that you do and letting someone else do it. Now, whether they don't work inside of your your business, or they could. Outsourcing can actually be inside of your own company where you actually hire people to do it. Sometimes outsourcing can be considered you hire somebody part-time. They come in from outside. That's what when I say outsourcing, I'm not necessarily meaning you're outsourcing it through Upwork or something like that. Although I do recommend using services like Upwork, because there's a lot of things on there that you would be surprised just about anything. If you want to delegate something, that the biggest thing, Matt, is a lot of people think, well, I can't delegate that. That can't be done by someone else. And a lot of times it really can't.
Right. And so it's funny you say that. I got two little stories to that point. One would be, I was working with one of my healthcare professionals, and she receives referrals, right? So she gets referrals from other people, and she thinks she needs to handle all the referrals. And so I challenged her on that, saying yes and no. So this is where I say you break it down into a process. What does handling a referral really mean, right? So I got a referral that says, talk to Dave, right? But, right, there could be an email that your assistant can send out to say, hey, Dave, I got your name from Bill. Love to get together and chat with you. Your assistant can send that email, right? Your assistant can send the email that says, hey, Bill, I set up an appointment with Dave. He and I are going to talk next week, right? Your assistant can set up that phone call or that meeting for next week, right? You physically need to go to that meeting or have that phone call with Dave, my referral. I got to do this. I didn't have to do everything up to getting in front of you. And even afterwards. So after I meet with Dave, I need to let my referral source know that. Hey, I had a great meeting with Dave. It went really well. We got some follow-up items. I'll let you how it goes. Your assistant can do that as well. So when you think of receiving referrals, there's really a process in there, and you can delegate pieces of that process. So that's the first thing I'd tell you.
Yeah, especially with, you take Dave and you say, okay, Dave, you want to outsource this. Why don't you write an email that your assistant can put the name in and your Calendly link or whatever. And,
right.
And let's take, even if it's just one step in there that you're going to automate.
Right.
If you're spending, let's just say 4 hours a week on that activity, that's 4 hours a week of your life that you get to go move into. Even if that's a C activity, that's 4 hours that moves you into a B activity, perhaps. I mean, of course, the ideal would be all A+ activities, but for some people starting out, delegating is very scary, and I'm giving up control, and people don't want to give up control, when in reality, when you've got control of everything, you have control of nothing.
Right. And that's a great point. I have a second story to share about my first delegation experience. And now I'm like the king of delegating, and I use virtual assistants, and I use Fiverr and Upwork and all this kind of stuff because believe it or not, there are people that like to do things that I don't like to do. There are people that actually like to do stuff that you don't like to do. They're out there. There are people that specialize in QuickBooks. They're, your accounting software. There are people that specialize in certain software packages. There are people that specialize in putting together pitch books, right? I mean, there are people that do this stuff, right? So mine was actually, I have a piece of software for my investment business that you have to update it every day. It takes about 10 minutes a day. So it's 10 minutes a day, 20 days a month, right? But about once a month, there would be some sort of mistake on the daily download, and it might take me 30 minutes to an hour to kind of fix it, right? But there was also that anticipation of the stress. Is today going to be the 10-minute day or the once a month that I got to do the 30 minutes to an hour? Because, gosh, I don't have time today to do the hour thing because I got meetings, right? So I found somebody who used to actually work for the software company, became a stay-at-home mom. So, yes, she knows the software, understands the software, and she'd be happy to do that daily 10-minute tasks for me. And, oh, by the way, it only takes her about 3 minutes because she's an expert in the software. And that task that happens about once a month that's an hour long for me takes her about 10 minutes. Because again, she's an expert in the software package. So her to solve the problem is like no problem for her. So I started doing that, and this was several years ago. And, you know, a nominal fee. I don't remember what we're paying. A couple $100 a month, maybe $300. I don't know what it was. But the relief that I felt, just the anxiety of, I know it's only 10 minutes a day, so it sounds really silly, but that 10 minutes was a stressful 10 minutes, right? That stressful 1 hour a month was a stressful 1 hour a month, right? Just knowing that I had taken that off that plate just invigorated me and filled me up. And then I started looking for other things that I could do. What else can I get rid of? What else can I delegate, right? So that's when I hired my very first bookkeeper very shortly after that, right? And so I'm a type A personality. So she's not writing checks. Well, if she writes the checks, I still have to sign them. So I want everybody to control their own numbers. But having somebody go and balance the books, and then all I have to do is double check it. That was awesome. I'm still a control freak, so I'm going to double check it. That's just who I am, right? But I only have to look at it once a month for an hour, right? Not, whatever, weekly for an hour. Anyway, those are a couple of my stories. Sorry, but it got me all excited. You start looking for other things.
That's the exact type of thing I think that a lot of people need to hear, especially the more of a solopreneur that you are. The way in which you're going to get free, if you're going to grow a big company one day, you've got to start with the delegation early. Well, I've been self-employed since 1992, and the hardest thing in the beginning was when I was teaching something to somebody new, even in the locksmith business, which was hands-on.
Right.
And I'd see an apprentice and they're working on something and they're struggling with it. I wanted to shove them out of the way. Let me do that.
That's what they say. It's easier for me to do it myself than teach somebody.
But the reality is, as time went along, I realized if I don't let this person with their shaky hands and their fear work through this problem, then they're never going to learn it. And the best thing I can do right now is actually just walk away and then have them come get me when the end result is done. And that way they did it their way. And then I could say, well, how did you do it? And then they tell me the way they did it. And then sometimes I could say, well, that's a different way than I would have done. Here's the way I would have done it. And next time, see if you like your way better or the way that I do it. And then that way now they have two opinions. And they might say, well, my way went quicker, Dave. And
right.
But if you always want to jump in there, you're going to be stuck small, no matter what type of business you're in. Now, I say that but there are so many entrepreneurs. I have some friends who are copywriters, and I mean high-paid copywriters, high six-figure copywriters. When I say high six, approaching the 7-figure a year copywriters. Well, even some of them delegate things like emails. So they're so busy writing for their clients the marketing materials, the website materials, that they'll be like, well, now I got all these emails I got to create, and I've got these other deadlines that are highest and best use that I've got to work on, and they'll outsource emails to others. So even somebody who is in a career like copywriting, which is very one person,
right?
They start to outsource. And what ends up happening with the best copywriters almost inevitably is they become an agency. If they're ever going to achieve true freedom, a lot of times they go from being a copywriter to an agency because they realize, wow, man, if I outsource the email, maybe I could outsource the sales letter, and I could outsource this, and all I'll is do the final read through and the little the critique, and then I'll send it off, and it'll look like my work, and it'll look great, and everybody will be happy, and I'll get paid, and a couple other people get paid, and everybody makes money. Well, that's when you realize what delegation can do for you, that's what it can do. It can make your efforts expand that you could not possibly do yourself, because you're limited by your time.
Absolutely. I'll give you another example. This just happened last week. So I've got my quarterly meetings coming up for my other business, the investment side of the business. And so let's call it, for this quarter, there's, maybe 20 to 30 names. I don't know what the exact number was. And so I give that to my virtual assistant and say, here are the names. Here, go in there and set up the appointments with everybody, right? So those are appointments that'll happen in September, October, maybe in November. But that gets it off my chest, right? That I don't have to worry about, when am I going to meet with Bill? And, I got to set that up. No, we'll let my assistant do that, right? And actually a virtual assistant. And she can do that through her own email. She could pretend to be me. It doesn't really matter. That's just semantics at that point, right? Because if Bill wants to talk with me, he doesn't care if the assistant set it up or if I'm setting it up, as long as there's a phone call or a meeting set up on the calendar. He doesn't care. Sure. Right? So I just delegated that. I literally just did this past week. And there's certain people like to meet at certain times of the day or certain days a week or at certain locations, right? But I know all that, and I noted that in the margins. Dave wants to meet over here, and Bill usually meets on Tuesdays, and this guy can only meet on Mondays, and this guy likes to eat at this particular restaurant, right? But I noted all that on a napkin. I call it kind of like the napkin, hey, we can put all that on a piece of paper, and then that's our 80% rule, right? I got 80% of it done, and then the assistant can book them. I literally just did that last week, and the relief you feel just from, wow, okay, now appointments, I know it's going to be handled, it'll be taken care of. Not today. I mean, it's going to take a little time to, all that back and forth, but I don't have to be a part of that, right?
Well, you're a part of it. Indirectly, you're a part of it, though.
Right. I just outline what I want done. I want to have meetings with these 20. I do the same things with centers of influence. So I get referrals from accountants and lawyers and consultants, right? So I'll do the same thing. I have these people that I want to meet each quarter. So set up those appointments for me. So I'm staying in front of those people on a quarterly basis. And I don't have to worry about the back and forth. Let somebody else handle the back and forth, right?
And it's especially as you move into professional fields, doctors, lawyers. If a doctor doesn't learn to delegate certain aspects, then what's he or she doing? So he's checking your blood pressure. He's checking your heartbeat. I say he, it could be a she, doctor, either way. But they're doing all these little activities. But you'll notice that most doctors nowadays, they've got so many patients to see. So you walk in and they've got a medical assistant. I don't know exactly what the title is, but they're going to check your blood pressure. They're going to check your heartbeat. They're going to check, what are you here for? Are your medications the same? Are this, and they go down the list. And then there'll be like the doctor being here. And the doctor gets to spend, 3.5 minutes with you, but you were with the assistant maybe 5 or 6 minutes. But if the doctor does not do that, they cannot possibly take care of all their patients, or they have to cut the amount of patients they can see. Right. Same with attorneys. You see attorneys with stacks of papers on their desk. If they don't hire a paralegal, they don't hire somebody to help them and delegate a lot of it, they'll never grow because they're stuck in their piles of paper. There's only so much any human can do. And right. Like you said, probably if there's one big thing that can be taken out of this, it's not always just the work. It's the sigh of relief that I don't have to do that.
Right.
You did it twice on 2 different things right. That I stress out about, but then you turn them over and you're like, oh, I'm so glad I don't have to do that anymore.
Right. And I have a doctor as a client. One of my clients is a doctor, and we talked about that. He was spending a lot of time at night at home writing up the medical reports from his meetings during the day, right? So he met with all these patients, and he took some notes, and then you got to enter him into their CRM at the end of it. He was taking 2 to 3 hours to do it at night at home. Oh, wow. So we came up with a delegation that it would be cost effective, right? It's going to cost him money. But he hired an intern, right? I don't know if it's a nursing intern or a PA intern, who could follow him around and take the notes during the meetings, and that was their job. He just had to proof the notes. Hey, we met with each patient. Here's what we did. Here's the treatment. And the PA or this intern, right, who knew the medical knowledge, like I couldn't just hire somebody off the street, right? They had to know the medical terms. Right? But that saved him the 2 to 3 hours at night, made his home life so much better. So it wasn't necessarily a monetary, it was more of a emotional, hey, I get time with the family and I don't have to do this at home. And it cost him money, but it was an investment, or that's worth it to him, right? That was worth it to him to have more freedom of time, right?
Sure. 2 to 3 hours a night, that's a lot.
I didn't realize that's how much he was doing, but yeah, that's brutal.
Yeah, even if he's only doing that 4 nights a week, that's a lot of time.
Yeah. Time away from the family, right? I mean, that's a productive use. I was talking to one of my neighbors the other day, and he's got a business, and he shares an assistant with another person. And I was like, it would probably be worth it to you to hire another assistant, full-time dedicated yourself, or another part-time person, or even an intern to do the kind of stuff, right? The scheduling, the emails, the appointments, because that's a better dollar spent for you, then frees up your time to do the A+ activities, as opposed to worrying about your partial use of an assistant, right?
Yep.
But it's like, just hire another assistant, and you'll more than pay for her by the amount of time you get to spend on your A+ activities.
Exactly.
I mean, you make a great point that people are so reluctant to give up control, or only I can do it. And that's where I say the biggest challenge is, well, just break it down into pieces. Surely there's some piece of it somebody could do. There's got to be a little piece that they could do, right?
And before long, they realize, oh, I guess that they can handle that.
Right.
And then they realize, well, maybe I can give a little more. It's usually they think they're losing control in some area. And I think the difference is between when you think you're losing control, you probably don't have control.
That's a good point. Right. I mean, you're out of control.
You're out of control. That's the reality is, when you think you can, when you have to do everything yourself, you're out of control. You don't have control, and you've got to let up some of that control. And I know there's solopreneurs, people who, might watch this and go, yeah, but I can't afford to hire somebody yet, or I can't. But that is what I would call the mentality is all wrong. You're assuming that your time is of no value.
Right.
And you're thinking like a $10 an hour employee instead of like an entrepreneur, realizing that if I could spend more of my personal time on the activities that pay more, I'll make more. And that's, so you go from scarcity mentality to a growth mindset.
Right.
You won't be able to grow unless you can actually say, I've got to outsource some of this stuff that's taking my time, eating my time. A doctor doing, I don't want to call it menial, but doing,
I understand,
like paperwork, that's
not the highest and best use of their time, right? Not their best use of time is getting in front of patients, right? And if that frees them to get in front of patients. I just had another example of this, just happened last week. So we've mentioned this before I use Screencast-O-Matic. I think it's called Screencast-O-Matic. It's a free software that you can videotape sorry, not even videotape anymore. You can record your desktop, right? So I have something new going on in my business. And so I recorded the screen on here's how you do that. It was maybe 4, 5, 6 steps. And it was new to me. So I just recorded it as I did it because somebody else had taught me how to use this new software package. And I was like, oh, we do this, this, and this. I made a video of it. Maybe it was 3 minutes long. Now that's the video that I send to my virtual assistant so they can do that task. It was a brand new process, a brand new piece of software I had never used before, but I recorded it as I did it. And so then the VA can use my own video of me doing it to reference to, so it's a she, so she can learn it herself, right? And I only had to do it once. And now she can do it on a daily basis. Again, one of those other little, 5-minute a day kind of tasks.
Yeah, and those are things that, people don't think, oh yeah, I guess I could record my screen while I'm doing this.
Right.
Even graphic designers, that's all they do, and they think it's their artistic ability. Sure, there's some of that, but they can record their screen and actually outsource some of that.
Yeah, it's the technology we have to be able to do that. And if you want audio recordings, right, you can just pick up your phone and record a message, right? We have dictation services. I had another different doctor who we got him a medical dictation service. Solve the same problem that way, where he could dictate his notes while he was having them, so he didn't have to type them up, and he had his assistant move them into their CRM. I forget what the patient management thing is called over there. but we used a virtual. So we used a, dictation service versus somebody following them around, right? Two different people, two different solutions, right?
Yeah. There's always different solutions. They're not all the same because nothing in business is one size fits all, for sure.
So if I was going to ask you, what are 3 things that you need to delegate? I'm challenging you. I'm throwing you for a loop. You can ask me this question.
I'll give you one example. So I'm going to start delegating my automated emails on all 3 of my companies because, look, delegation and automation are 2 big things in business. Automation is automating follow-up so that whenever you have products or customers or prospects in all these different funnels, well, you have to have automated emails. And writing those and keeping up with my other activities has been a lot on my plate. So I said, you know what, I'm going to hire some copywriters. I've got some friends. I'll just hire somebody to write my emails, and I'll look them over and make sure they're writing them in
your kind of voice,
in my voice, as close as possible to my voice, and I'll just outsource that. So that's one activity that I'm definitely not. I mean, long before this call, I'm like, I need to start outsourcing my emails. That's something. Also, outsourcing my Facebook ads. I'm not currently doing Facebook ads, but on occasion I do them. But
right.
If I outsource them, I'd probably do them a lot more.
It's funny. I'm thinking about that myself.
Yeah, outsourcing this video that we do, outsourcing the uploading. It doesn't seem it takes long, but it's about 30 to 45 minutes every week that we
can have somebody else do. Absolutely.
So those are 3 areas that I'm like, well, we ought to be, those things, if I had them off my plate, would be, a little bit of a relief. They're not hard, but at the same time, the emails are a big thing because they take up a lot of time. If you write a 400-word email, and let's say that takes you 15 minutes, and then you proofread it, and it takes you another 15 minutes. Well, if you've got to write 5 or 6 emails, I mean, you're talking hours of time.
Yeah, there's a whole afternoon. Yeah.
So those are big ones. How about you? What do you need to outsource?
Yeah. So I was talking about outsourcing some of my, setting up my appointments, which I just started doing that. Funny you say that. I'm actually looking at playing around with some Facebook advertising for the coaching business and for the investment business. So I kind of like you, I know what I want done. I just don't want to be the one to do it.
Yeah.
Right. Like you said, you could do it yourself. I could do it myself. I don't really want to do that. And then the third, I was just sitting here as we were chatting that, now it lost me. I had another idea that I was going to delegate or outsource, or now I can't remember what it was. So I got one more. So I was saying Facebook, I was saying my appointments. Anyway, there's something else I need to delegate or outsource. It'll come back to me. But I like that. And I like thinking about that I tell you what, on a quarterly basis, I do that activity inventory, right? So even me, I find myself spending too much time on the C activities, right? You're never done. That's always, a migration. So I always look for opportunities to delegate like this. So that's why this was a good conversation to have. I'm trying to think what the third one thing I had it in my head a second.
And you'll think of it here
right after we're done. So that was pretty good. So we would say delegate in order to increase your earnings and increase your free time.
Yeah.
Right.
And your quality of life. That's ultimately
quality of life. If
you outsource things, look, you said it earlier. It was a sigh of relief. Well, that's improving your quality of life. Because
absolutely.
Stress definitely takes away from your quality of life. Time away from your family takes away from your quality of life. So if you're doing activities that someone else can do do well, mind you, it costs some money. I mean, nothing is free, but ideally you outsource that so that you have more time to enjoy your life.
Yeah, it's an investment. I call it an investment. It's not a cost.
Or you're making more money as a result. So.
Yeah, make an investment. So we said, how do we do that? We said, do an activity we got to know where you're spending your time. Do an activity inventory, everything you're doing for a week. Qualify it, ABC activities. 80-20, probably 8% of your stuff is spent doing C activities. That's the stuff you start delegating first. We talked about how to delegate. We talked about making screencasts, little videos. We talked about using your phone and dictation that you can do. We gave specific examples, right? That you could outsource writing emails, examples of setting appointments. Those are great examples of things that you can outsource, pieces of a project that you can delegate or outsource, where you're just proofing it. So I think we gave them some pretty good stuff. Simplify to multiply.
That's
right?
it.
You delegate some of the stuff, you'll have more time and you'll make more money and you'll have a higher quality of life. That sounds like a pretty good win-win-win, maybe.
I would say that's win-win-win. So good.
All right, man. Where can we find you?
Find me at davidmulvaney.com. You can connect with me on LinkedIn at David Mulvaney. How about you, Matt?
Perfect. So Matt Hudgins over at LinkedIn. And then I've got 10xprofitblueprint.com. 10xprofitblueprint.com is the coaching website.
All right. Subscribe to our YouTube channel. Ring the bell so you're notified of our weekly video, and comment below. And I'd love to hear from you. Take care.
Sounds good, man. See ya.
Take care.